Hey everyone, welcome to the Alive with Courage podcast. Super stoked to have Adam Thompson here. Thank you so much for being with me. We are so pumped to just chat about all things coaching, all things entrepreneurship, all things risk. I mean, this is going to be a really good one. I'm super stoked. So yeah, why don't you just share a bit about who you are, how you even landed in SoCal? I know there's this famous contingent that came down from the Pacific Northwest, but would love to hear just how you arrived here.
Infamous for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, my name's Adam. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders at Hati Home. I was born down here in Southern California, spent a lot of my childhood in Arizona, and then I ended up in Washington. Came back down to California for university, went to Vanguard University and went to school in Seattle for a year, but ended up meeting a group of guys that were going to Vanguard. And that's a group of men that have just we're still best friends to this day, like hang out all the time, but they've been so transformative in my life, So they're intertwined, both good and bad throughout this whole next hour of this conversation. But yeah, kind of came down here, went to Vanguard, and then that group of guys and I started a company called Crochet Kids. And that was a fun little area of our life. We were essentially trying to help women in Uganda and Peru, but started in Uganda, who had been internally displaced, like some of the gnarliest situations that anybody could go through. We were trying to help them on their journey from disempowerment to empowerment. That looked like providing jobs and education and training and just social support. So it's like a beautiful thing to do, when you're 20. And I mean, we were still, I guess we were probably 21 or 22 when we started it, still in college. But yeah, spent my 20s doing that business with those guys. And what a wild journey that was, It was a fantastic thing. The fun thing is we just impacted so many lives, that was such a cool thing.
Well, I think about my daughter, and I think about there's so many, colleges just getting blown up of will there even be college in the next 10 years? But this idea of man, I would love for my girls to go be entrepreneurs for their 20s. Yeah. I mean, what a gift I think that season is to be able to go play and experiment, fail,
totally,
without hardly any major negative consequences it can have.
Yeah. So. I mean, what a fun time. Yeah. Like you said, there are just no consequences at that age. Let's get on a plane with a bag full of yarns. What could go wrong?
Right. Yeah.
And let's get malaria and dengue and let's get it all, because who cares? And life's a little different now, but that was a super courageous, fun, challenging time though too. There was a way of being. I entered into that business in one way, and then I think I came out a little bit different,
Yeah. Yeah,
for sure.
And there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people throwing their hands into that mix. So it was a very collaborative, community-driven organization. It seemed like
we were trying to do best friends and business partners at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tricky. But super beautiful too. I think we navigated that super well given the circumstances. Yeah. But it's fun to not run a business with those guys anymore. It's fun to just be best buds. That's for sure. I mean, you learn so much in your 20s. So much of what I'm doing today is just a reflection or a refinement of mistakes or successes that we experienced at that stage. So much of what Hati is today is a result of trying to process and work through and capture and throw away all these different elements of that 11 years of my life.
That's cool. So, okay, so that was most of your 20s, up until late 20s. Is that, if you take us through that bookend? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the journey, we ran that business for, I think, 11 years together. What happened with Crochet Kids is that we essentially ran into a challenge, it was just a tough business to run. We were committing to these women to employ them 3 to 3 years. And we were committed to walking them through a journey, not us personally, but all these social workers and all these trainers, local talent. It doesn't necessarily reflect how things are sold here in the US, we were selling in Whole Foods and Nordstrom's and Tilly's, and we had some large clients, but they like to order once a year, and you never know what that order is going to actually look like, and trends change. And so I try not to look at any of it like we failed at anything, because I don't actually think that. I just think the ambition of what we were trying was tough. It was tough. And then I think as a group, we got to the point that was there's got to be a better way. Like we're really good at this social impact component and we're good at running a business. Running them together, it feels like we're failing on both parts. So what we decided to do was break it into two components, split the nonprofit off so that it could just take that model for change and build, and then let an apparel company act like an apparel company and tell the story of the workers and the signature component that was a part of the brand where people could go meet the people, meet the maker of the product. So we just decided these two things are better separately, or just to exist in separation. And
they still exist now?
Yeah. And they're thriving. Like Crochet Kids became Known Supply. That was part of the schism, it was like rebranding both entities. And both are thriving, like the nonprofits opening up into new regions within East Africa. So it's not related to manufacturing products here in the US, but it's all about agriculture and having an impact on productivity and just social, emotional well-being. So that's still going. Known Supply is going. But I think my kind of left at that point, so some people stayed in, but I was like, I'm getting out. I need a break, move beyond that. I need a separation from running a business with my friends. There's just so much that I was like, I just need a break. Yeah, I kind of left it. I mean, the schism was fantastic, like we really believed in, and I still believe in that separation, but I was kind of what I remember where I left was in that phase where it was just super hard. I didn't get to experience a lot of the benefit or the journey that those brands have been on since, so I left and moved to Bali and was like, screw this, which was great and a super fun journey. But I think, we'll get into it probably about how exiting at that time, there were some scars, not because of anything anybody did, but just because I left at a moment where I felt like it was internally for me, it felt like a failure in a sense, which is, I didn't get to experience those two things thriving on their own, the rebirth, which kind of left me in a space of like, that was hard. That was impossible. Business was hard in general. And some of these beliefs that I have about, that it's just funny. You talk to some of these guys and they're like, we talk about our experiences of those moments and they were very different, and so much of that was just our internal dialogue that was existing in our internal belief structure about what was happening around us. Guilt, shame, frustration, exhaustion, all of that was just different for everybody. And
yeah, it's interesting when you kind of trace back some of the inception moments of where some of these like core limiting beliefs like register on our hearts, and a lot of them start with some degree of trauma, like something happens and there's a pain and a hurt. And, as kids, we long to see our, if our parents fight or whatever, no problem, as long as there's repair going on. There's the rupture and repair. If you see a nice healthy cycle of that, we'll usually move through situations like that. But when we have these trauma events and then it doesn't quite get wrapped or the repair doesn't quite happen, they kind of stay lodged, so.
And for me, I was always watching from the outside a little bit, and that was a choice. That was a choice I made. That's not to blame anybody, but I was like, I wonder what's going on. Is it working?
So you're like observing for a year or two after you left.
Yeah. And I was on the outside of it. I wasn't on the inside of it anymore, which was challenging in a lot of ways. And that was a choice I made, but it was, Yeah, I think you're right. I didn't get to experience the reconciliation and the rebirth of those things. The manifest, I helped cast the vision for both of those, but I didn't get to experience that vision coming to reality. And so I left at a time, maybe not at the worst time. Like I don't regret leaving, but it was maybe the most messy. Or the most probably the most messy period. So for me,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you, and is it just Callie or you had kids at this time? You were moving to Bali?
Yeah, we had Honey. We had our first daughter. She was 2. We got done with, we had created the split in the companies. We had set each on their own way. And I was like, I'm going to Bali. Like I need to, Callie had this opportunity. She had a business at the time that was doing similar work and they were working with artisans in Bali. And I was like, great, let's go do this. I'm sick of, I need to change the scenery. And so we boogied out there and, yeah, the intention was just to chill. You know, I was working for the nonprofit as a kind of a consultant, helping build the next phase of what we were going to do. But I had kind of let my leadership role go in that. I was really just like
Independent. Yeah.
yeah, and also just kind of going through the motions a little bit. My heart wasn't in it, and I was really sick too of living somewhere but feeling like I needed to be somewhere else, you know. So in Costa Mesa, I always felt like I needed to be in Gulu, Uganda, or Lima, Peru, because that's where my teams were. And so I was just all, but I had a family, I had a wife who had other intentions, you know, and and so then now I'm in Bali trying to work in Uganda and Peru, and I was like, this is tough. And so a lot of it was just like, after about a year of supporting Capable and helping that transition, I was like, I gotta be done. And then we were just going to chill, you know, like, cause you can live in Bali. You can live super expensively, but you can live pretty cheaply there. So I was like, cool. We'll just live off Cali and we'll just like kind of cruise. Which was fun, you know, and that was super satisfying for a short period of time because I was surfing every day and we were at the beach every afternoon, and it was just so fun to kind of be selfish with our time. Yeah. I think there was a lot of burden from the Crochet Kids and the Capable of like, there's always more help that we can provide, or there's always more we can do for these people. And, or there's always more I need to learn to be good at, you know, it's a challenging thing to like try to help people empowered, you know, like these are big goals. Like, what does it mean to help someone, you know, become empowered? Those are big goals. So it's kind of nice just to be like, I go surfing twice a day, and then I eat nasi goreng, and then I sleep. You know, like that was a super fun period. But
I noticed you said for a period of time.
Yeah.
Like, and is that the inception of Hati?
Yeah.
And just as we're throwing down the word Hati, describe what Hati is.
Yeah, Hati means heart in Indonesia, Indonesian, and yeah, that was the start of this furniture business. You know, it was essentially getting, I think my journey in that phase was like, who am I? What am I? You know, like, I know I'm not working right now, or I'm working very limited. I'm a very small amount of hours. Am I this like apparel entrepreneur version of Crochet Kids, or am I this impact consultant version of Crochet Kids that became Capable? And I was really wrestling with these decisions, and I was asking my friends, like, what do you guys think I should do? And getting different opinions across the board. But there was something in me that was like, I think I want to pursue the entrepreneurial side, you know? And so that, coupled with a bit of downtime, you know, some availability of hours, was like, I think the first thing that came into our life in terms of opportunity was, well, actually, I talked to Callie and I was like, hey, you want me to come help 31 Bits? I think I could be helpful in these ways. And they were like, do you want to work here? You know, it's not all roses and butterflies over here either. And so I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. So then I was like, what's next? What's available? And at the time we were, you know, we had decorated our house in Bali, and you just make everything from scratch. So everything's, you find an artisan on the side of the road, you tell them, you take a picture, and you say, can you make this? And they do. There's no IKEA. There's nothing. Everything's made to order, and oftentimes made to like designed by the customer. And so we did that for our house, got some photos, got some great feedback from people here in California. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Let's just start a furniture company, you know, like, why not? You know, so that's how Hati that was the genesis of it. There was availability of time. There was this cautious, like, I am an entrepreneur. I want to be. I always thought like at that point, I was a very reluctant entrepreneur. You know, I was like, I'm going to step into this space and try to build something. But I hadn't, like, the initial phase of Hati Home was like super fun and interesting and light at sometimes, but I hadn't done a lot of the work of like dealing with what I perceived as failures inside of Crochet Kids. So I entered into Hati Home very much like, you know, this is going to be hard. Business is hard. Business is challenging. Maybe it's impossible to do it really well. And yet I was in it. And so that belief, that mindset was really informative for how that business ran for the first couple of years and my journey alongside.
That's interesting. So like your body's taking the action in entrepreneurialism, like designing the stuff, creating the website, like moving product and stuff. And then internally there's like these drags or these weights of business is hard. It will always be hard. Like,
well, yeah. And my intention was to do Hati part-time, Hati Home part-time, and then to move and to do consulting on the side. And for me, that was the balance of like, which one am I? I'm both, you know?
oh, interesting.
And then Hati just started like, there were little bubbles of like, oh wow, there's something here, you know? I'm like, it was quiet. Like, oh my gosh, like this is worth my attention, you know? Like this feels like the thing that's most interesting to me. I never actually kicked off the consulting business. Because the Hati Home side of it just really started to build. But I was still reluctant. I was still scared. I was still like, am I this? Is this my identity? That was hard.
Yeah. So what happened? So it sounds like you said, you're moving, you're starting to get little pops of success, like with like proof of concept is starting to happen with Hati, like people are buying the stuff, it's starting to move. I'm just wondering, like, at what point, because at some point you slow down and you're like, hey, what's going on inside of me? The reluctancy, the nervousness, the fear, like the limiting beliefs of business is hard. Like it seemed like there was a moment where you had to make a shift there, like something wouldn't let you go any further. Like
and there were a few hard stops that like where it just did not work for me.
Where did you hit walls?
I think the first wall was with the birth of my second daughter, Golden. She came into the world. I think I had just been like, I'm fully committed to Hati Home. We had a container arrive of just broken furniture. And then so that was like, oh crap, we're selling junk. Like there's no business. I don't want to run a business selling junk. And then Goldie comes into the world a couple weeks later and she ends up almost dying in her birth. But yeah, so she was in the NICU for a couple weeks. Her lungs didn't work properly. So she was basically suffocating. Thank God for the Hogue nurses or any of these, like, these NICU nurses are just incredible humans. So they got her right. But it was just this, like, there was a lot of burden in that time. There was a lot of fear. And so that was like one hard stop. And I remember we were living in California, or we came back to have Goldie, planning to go back to just being like, can I do this? You know, like, can I actually do this? And, you know, it was never like I was having suicidal thoughts or anything like that. But there were moments of just such darkness. I was like, I don't know that we won't be homeless in a year, you know, because I've got Hati Home. I've only got this 10, 11-year experience with my buds running Crochet Kids, but it's not like at that time, I didn't feel like that was necessarily extractable or useful. That was so contextual. So I was like, I have no skills. Which is so silly to think that, but I was just in such a dark place.
Well, what happens sometimes, I think, is like there's an eclipse that happens where you actually just start seeing all the darkness and all the limitedness.
Oh yeah.
And it really just overrides any of the light of your past history, your past wisdom, your past experience.
Yep.
And you just get like eclipse and all you can see is,
Oh man, that was tough. I just remember looking at the sidewalk and just being like, I don't know if I could take another step, and just falling, you know, and heavy stuff. So that was a hard stop, or that was a wall for sure. I don't really recall like my wife is just been a rock through all of that, you know, and her positivity, and she's a creative. And so she just always sees the good things in the world, you know? And so she got me through that time really. And then I think also too, like there was some reorientation of faith a little bit during that time as well. That was challenging it. Like what still works for me, you know, like I didn't at that point want to just pray and like God's going to give me success, you know, like I did really, that's a theme of our work, you know, is me kind of pushing up against that sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
And so I felt like I left that at that point. I didn't have this like, oh, God is going to provide for me feeling at that point in my life. It was such scarcity. Everything was so hard. Everything was so limited. And yeah, we ended up back in Bali. Like once Goldie got better, that was obviously a huge help for me. And then it was like, okay, got to get back to the grindstone. But another little moment that I didn't really deal with, I just pushed through because that's what I had to do. You know, I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to make more furniture and sell it. Because we actually do need to eat. And if we're going back to Bali, I'm not Uber driving, you know, because that was my backup. It was either like, I'm going to just be homeless or an Uber driver.
Nice.
And you know what? Maybe being an Uber driver would be
You'd be awesome. Uber driver.
I'd be a great Uber driver. I meet so many cool Uber drivers. I always like want to talk to them because I'm like, you got a side hustle.
Yeah.
I know you're like only here for a couple months or whatever.
What are you doing?
Because I've been there too.
Yeah.
And that was just my backup. So, so that was a hard stop. And then, I think my journey, like with our work, has really been about trying to relate to work differently. And I never did the work to like really dig into that. Well, then Hati started having some success, and when things are good, it was so good. But then we'd have challenges, and they would just be like way overblown or way massive, you know? So trying to run a business,
that roller coaster.
yeah, it was just up and down, up and down. You know, running the business in Bali, always up in the middle of the night, checking emails. Oh, there's going to be so many problems. And it was like mostly just like, great emails, you know, like, I love the furniture. Thank you. Or like, I'm ready for this to ship. And I'd get an email back, shoot, what's going to happen, you know? And so like, business is hard. Business is challenging. This isn't going to work. Like, these are the mindsets I carried through, and I pushed through them. But there were moments that I think the moment for me that started the coaching journey was, our warehouse flooded, like the sprinkler system. We just got a big warehouse. We moved everything in, and the sprinkler system faulted, filled the whole bottom of the warehouse up with like 5 inches of rain or 5 inches of water. And I'm in Bali. I've got a part-time worker.
Yeah.
I've got 2 part-time people. But they're not really committed to this, you know, like this is like side hustle stuff for them. Yeah. That's the level we were. And I was like, what do I do? Like the warehouse, the furniture's rotting. I can't get home. I think this was in COVID too. So I don't actually think I could have flown. I don't think we could have left Bali without not being able to get back in. So I just felt so isolated and scared and panicked.
You couldn't even be the firefighter if you wanted to be, because you couldn't even get there. Yeah.
No. And this is when my wife was like, dude, you need help. Like time. I mean, she said it nicer than that, but she was like, it's time to like start this, like, we're okay. You're okay. You're good at what you do. There's just such a lack of confidence because I left because of moments leading up in Hati Home, but also just like that lack of confidence in the story, like how I told the story of that the Crochet Kids experience for me ended in kind of dissolution and crisis, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's where I'm always heading. So Callie was like, you're crazy, dude. You're capable. You gotta get out of this. So yeah.
So out of what? Like out of these mental frameworks that are serving you? Is that what she was basically inferring?
I think she was just like, you're crazy, dude. Like you're capable. Why don't you see it? You know, I think that was really how she would have eloquated it. She said it nicer, obviously, but I think that's what she meant. And then that started the coaching journey with a gentleman named Hermas, who she found on Instagram and was like, Adam, you should talk to this dude. And I was like, I'll do anything because I was at rock bottom too in that moment. I was definitely not in a great place.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. And so that started like a 2-year process before I met you, or I'd known you for a long time, but before we entered into a coaching relationship. But that guy just totally changed my life in so many ways. But I think the big one was really, he invited me into like consciousness and this untriggered state of life versus like, I was always ready for Hati I was always ready for that bad email. I was always ready for this negative thing to happen.
Shoe to drop.
Yeah. And so I spent my whole days waiting for it or even like simple things, but super critical things for a furniture company. Like the furniture's not good enough, you know? So I was always like there in that mindset. And so anytime that belief would be affirmed, it was just like, make you learn more.
I told you. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, I was right. You know, and you know, we always want to be right about things.
Yeah.
That's like one of our survival needs. And what was happening is I was just totally overblowing all the beauty and positivity in my life because I just was waiting for negative things to happen. And so we spent 2 years going on journeys, going back into moments in my life, re-talking to business partners at Crochet Kids, kind of trying to reframe these moments in my head, forgiving myself for how I carried them, forgiving them, you know, dad, mom, friends, wife, everybody, you know, I was carrying all this extra weight from, and just like kind of slowly releasing that and trying to get me out of like a triggered state where I was always, like, I was just on that roller coaster all the time. So that was like that was great work.
Very foundational. Yeah.
Yeah. Super fun. Like I actually just met him for the first time last week. We've talked on over Zoom for 4 or 5 years. But we just did a party in LA, and he came by. And
No
it was like
way.
such a cool moment.
Oh, wow.
To like he just really changed my life. He changed Kylie's life too. She saw some of this mindset change that was happening in me. And she had her own journey with her company, some very similar, just like, whoo, and then kind of out in the wilderness. And so she did a lot of work, and we've done work together. It's just, he was just such a gift to us at that point. But yeah, a lot of that season was so much like, let's heal internally and let's work on consciousness. And I got to the point after a couple of years where, especially because Hati had continued to grow. These were the COVID years. So COVID, every furniture business, but we also experienced this like consistent growth. And I was like, okay, like I'm ready. Like, I feel like not done with that. Like I'm not fixed, I'm not healed in that sense necessarily fully, but there's been enough healing and enough effort put into this side of things. Like I'm ready to jump into like action, like I feel ready to step into Hati fully. And that's kind of where we started connecting. I was like, I want someone to like join me in that journey of like, really like, let's act. And then let's take that action and that performance and like celebrate it and kind of change the relationship to work by doing, rather than trying to heal like these internal moments. Yeah.
Yeah. So almost what I hear in that is like a beautiful concrete foundation has been laid, like for Hati, not only in where the business was at, it was growing. And then even internally, there's a lot of healing that went on in the heart. And then it was like, okay, like I want to start building something beautiful. Like, and I want to start like, it's almost like you had changed the relationship with the past and how you were experiencing the present. And then it was like, now I want to start I want to create a changed experience and change my relationship with how I go build.
Yeah, 100%. Like that was like, I think I've changed my relationship to myself. I've changed my relationship to people around me and my history as well. Now I just really want to change my relationship to work and like because I tend to work like in the immediate to the next like 18 months. That's like where I like to spend my time. And my relationship to that was still like, I have forgiven and moved beyond a lot of what was back here, but I was looking forward and I was like, oh, there's more risk. There's more fear. So I wanted to change that perspective, you know? And,
cause you were encountering fear as you looked out. Yeah.
There's always future. I mean, that's just the story of our work together. It's like future challenges, they're always going to be there. And, I just wanted to relate. Like, I didn't know how I wanted to relate to those things, but I wanted to relate to them differently.
Yeah.
As opportunity. Like, I just wanted to enjoy work.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. I sensed that like, I wasn't going to find that digging up old things. Like I needed to build a new way of operating, through action and not operating the business, but just like literally operating my brain.
Yeah.
And that's why I remember you came into my life like professionally at that point. Like we'd known each other a long time, but you had invited me to one of the seminar that was going on. And I just remember being there being like, wow, this is some stuff that like I really want to get into. We're talking about vision, we're talking about dreams, we're talking about like breaking our brains, breaking the limitations we put on ourselves, and I was like, okay, this is really it. This is where I want to spend this next season.
That's cool. Yeah. I remember you being there in that day. That was a great workshop. And then I remember, we took a walk in the canyon and you really just kind of like poured out your heart and was like, I want a new relationship with work. I want a new relationship with fear. I want to go create, have fun creating. So that was what? That was 2023, like the end of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that session might've been early 2023. And then maybe we started August. And that was the commitment, I was like, okay, I don't know how to do this. And I think I was kind of expecting you to do some of it for me. I was honestly, what I was expecting you to be was like my dad, just like, what, dig in, and just like,
get your push-ups in.
Yeah. And I remember you being like, oh, that's not what I'm going to do. But I think that first little season, I mean, even that probably first 3 or 4 months, we were just like, I was figuring out what the work actually was,
Yeah.
I came in, maybe with like, okay, we're going to grow the business. This is going to like measurably change the finances of the business right away, you know? And that wasn't what I was after. I was after my relationship to work, but I think I just wanted my relationship to work to change because of all the financial success we'd have. And it was like, no, no, no. We're going to live over here in this space where we're diving into belief systems, limitations, and this just some of the foundational beliefs around what work is in life, you know? And yeah, that was a great little season, you know?
Yeah.
Like we got into some of those tools, like the intuitive fence and the break your brain exercise and how to develop vision, you know? And it was like, wow, this is, yeah, I don't know. I think it took a little while to figure out for us to sync up, and then for just me to understand what the work was that we were doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Cause you go in with expectations of X or of A, and it just kind of, there's a different reality there. You know?
Yeah. I like to describe it as like that first 2 to 3 months is really just about getting water penetrating the soil, right? Where we're getting water back into the soil. We're getting terminology that works for us.
Yeah.
Our relationship is syncing. There's even just too like a season of just observing you and watching you talk. And
who am I? Who am I in the work relationship?
Totally. And so much of coaching is just good listening and learning how to hear someone talks, because the way you speak reveals what you believe in your heart, you know? And so as a coach, you're trained to hear how people talk, and then you're like, oh, that's interesting. Like he used the word, I always have to, or I never, or I should, or I could, you know, and these words sort of like tell on your heart and how you're relating to certain things you want to go create in the world. And so, yeah, those first, 2 to 4 months is all about noticing, creating vision together. We're really doing a deep dive into like desires of your heart. Like, what would you love to see? And oftentimes what we get out to is we get these either ors, like either I could have a great relationship with my family, or I could have awesome growth for the company. Right. And and our brains are thinking in these either or sort of ways. And so the visioning process is also too about going, well, what if you could have both? Like, what if you could design a world where you have freedom with your family and you have a growing business, and our brains are like, no, that's not how I'm thinking, but the coaching space is meant to hold those two pieces and say, go solve that design problem and see what comes out.
Yeah.
And
I remember you saying that. I remember you being like, why does it have to be like, why does business have to be good and you can't spend a ton of time with your kids? And it's like, what is this guy talking about? Like this is crazy. But yeah, business was impossible. Business was hard. So you have to put in that mindset, you have to put everything into it.
Totally.
And everything else sacrifices. And it was like the removal of the but or the or and the inclusion of like that capital and, A and D was like a,
well, I love what you just said there, because you then have to challenge what you believe, how business occurs to you. Like you said, business occurred to me as hard or as gonna fail or whatever it may be. And you have to re-look at the mindsets that have built the scaffolding around how you see business. And so then if you put those two things together, you're like, well, shoot, now we have to build a whole new scaffolding system of beliefs in order to go create something like that. Yeah. And that's what's so fun, is because when someone's able, and we talk about curiosity a lot, like in our work, when you're able to give yourself the permission to just be curious and to play. And I think part of that first 2 or 3 months is just learning how to come off the expectations and into a play zone where I'm like, you don't have to do any of this. We're just getting it out on the table and playing with it. We're not committed to anything yet, and that's really the first 2 to 4 months, is just getting it all on the table, playing, seeing what we like, what we want to build. And then once we have something that you're like, man, I would love to go build that. It kind of seems impossible to me. It's kind of outside my fence. Yeah. But if we could push play on that, that would be a really fun playground over the next 6 months to a year.
Totally.
Right.
Well, I think that timeline matters, as well. It's like, that's not something, at least for me, that wasn't, it's really important that when I step into this work, that I was authentic in it. And it's easy to have those quick moments of like, yeah, I'm committed to that. And then you're like, well, am I actually committed to that?
Do I really want that? Yeah.
And so I think, I still feel like I'm very careful to make sure that when I say something, that I'm ready for something, like there's authenticity behind it.
Yeah.
But it took that first couple months it was just, it took me a while to really catch like, okay, like this is actually what I'm committed to, because you're being I feel like that first season is really about curiosity. You know, like
Mm.
we were bringing new concepts into play, and then I felt like I was able to be curious but not committed to any of those. You know, but we were starting to like the word play comes in, I think, a little bit later, but we were playing in that space of curiosity, and then the commitment started to come, and then like the high integrity and the authenticity really started to pay off, because I was like, okay, no, I'm going to commit to this one thing and I'm going to try it. And then you start to see like, oh, that actually worked, or there was an impact there that I didn't foresee, or that was way easier than I thought, or all these things, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that first season is really just about sticking in it and being curious in that place, because it's easy to come in and just say, yeah, I'm going to do all these things. But when you're literally measuring my integrity score, how well I'm committed, whether I'm doing these things, whether I'm fulfilling these commitments by a certain time, it's a little different. You know? Like you really got to, or I really wanted to make sure when I said I was committed to something, that it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to pause for a second there, that whole integrity space of, you know, lots of people think there's a definition for integrity as I'm a good man, I'm a good character, I've got good moral. But there's also this word of integrity defining it as wholeness and completeness. So like in the way we know a human is whole and complete, one of the ways is, does their word work? So we're constantly keeping an eye on, does Adam's word work? He says he wants this thing. He says he'll do these things, but does his word actually work? And in a playful way, we clap when a commitment is kept, and we also clap when a commitment is broken, because the broken commitments end up revealing those glitches in the matrix where your word isn't working as effectively as it could.
Yeah.
And the way we create new things is through our words. You actually speak them into existence before they actually happen, right? So we're always kind of paying attention to the words and what you say you're committed to. And so that's a question that just comes up every session.
Yeah.
Did you keep your commitments 100%? And it's just a way to check in on, hey, how's your word working?
Yeah. But I'm like a performer, you know, like I wanted to, like if I said something, I wanted to perform it. You know, I wanted to like nail the commitments, and it took me a long time to be okay with like, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Maybe I'm not actually committed to it. And that's where that curiosity, that curious, playful mindset started to replace this like, I need to will it. I need to grind it. I need to control it. Like those were two opposing mindsets. And I wouldn't have eloquated this at the time, but I've been wanting to journey more into that curious, playful space with work, as opposed to like, initially I was like, oh, Seth's going to get me to do what I say I'm going to do, you know? And it's like, that's not really what we do. And that's not really where the sweet sauce is, you know? It's much more in like, you know, working through why something wasn't fulfilled that was committed to. But that's where the beauty of the work is, you know, because we're actually digging into self, you know, and beliefs. Yeah. Because I can perform all day. Like I'm a high performer. That's easier for me to do. But to like make it an authentic, curious, playful space, that's a little bit harder, and has been.
Which is really what you came to the space with, which was like, I want a different relationship to work. I can do the whip myself. Yeah. And it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. And it's a roller coaster. Right. And so again, back to that, what if I could have both? What if I could have up into the right performance and really enjoy the process and enjoy the ride?
That was that critical initial stage of the reorientation and the reestablishing a different relationship to work, for sure. It was in that curious space.
Yeah. So we spent the first, 5 to 6 months playing with new tools, understanding what could be, and really kind of created this beautiful vision. The team was starting to get aligned and moving and creating in new ways that they hadn't created before. And then we hit rough seas that first quarter of 2024, and like everything we thought that was going to happen didn't happen. Yeah. And just maybe we could talk about that just for a few minutes, just what was going on for you in that season.
Yeah. Well, I think you said it really well in that analogy of like, the first phase is really just about dumping water. Sometimes you get stuck in the mud a little bit. Yeah. You know? So we had like put so much out, and there's been so much positivity and even some initial wins, you know, with like a mindset that I had around staff. You know, I always have thought employees were the worst, and they're just going to kill the business, and they're expensive. Because we had a business, Krochet Kids had hundreds of employees, you know, and it was just, everybody got paid before us. And so they weren't the problem, they were the mission, but that was the challenge. And so we had a great little win initially that was like, well, what if we could find an employee who loves to work hard and wants to be paid fairly and like really wants to build something with you? You know, what if we didn't view employees as leeches? What if we viewed them as like partners, you know? And so we had a little win there, and I was like, oh, this is easy, dude. Relationship to work, check, you know?
Done.
Yeah, done. And then so you kind of have this high of like, okay, wow, I tried something and it worked. I've always, even still, I'm conscious of like, well, what happens when things don't go to plan? Do I have the resilience to not dip all the way off? And I think within that first 6 months, we found that when we're an e-commerce business, we sell furniture all over the US, and we're powered by Shopify and really by meta advertising, you know, documents, Facebook and Instagram. That was what we built the business off of. And this was, I forget when it was, maybe it's, anyway, but what basically happened is February 2024, they had changed the algorithm. There was a major change prior to that, but there's something happened to a lot of e-commerce brands in that moment, but sales just dipped off and performance and advertising just dipped off.
Oh, wow.
And so all of a sudden, this plan that I built for the year was there was a crisis. You know, I was like, I'm not going to have enough money if sales continue like this. I'm not going to have enough space to store the furniture I bought if things continue like this. And I had a choice to make. I was like, I'm either fully committed or I'm not. And I pulled back. I basically was like, nope, I need to preserve, I need to protect. And I don't know if that was the wrong decision or the right one. You know, I don't look back on that with any judgment necessarily, because we didn't have a lot of money and we didn't have a lot of extra space at that point. But what happened is, like, I did that in February. I told my suppliers, I was like, hey guys, things are going to slow down in the US economy, I think, or at least for us. We're done. The COVID era of growth is done. And they basically panicked and stopped producing things. And so that's what I wanted. That was my desire at that point, was like.
And these are 6-month lead times.
Yeah, even longer, realistically. Yeah, these are 6-month lead times.
Yeah.
But then what happened is, like, March was trash again. And then April 1st, for the rest of 2004 was record months for us. Just growth, you know, and the things that we had invested into, you know, social media management, better ads, better, you know, a lot of the things that a lot of our marketing initiatives started to work, you know, but there was a 2-month gap there between like that moment of panic to where the stuff started to work that I really shocked the system and ultimately left a lot of revenue on the table as a result, because I could never catch up with furniture. You know, I was always on lead times, always out of stock.
Oh, so for the rest of the year, there were so many more orders than you had in stock for.
Yeah, we could have. I mean, I look back, I was looking at some notes, and I thought we could have done like $500,000 to $1 million more in revenue. You know, fast forward to this year, we'll get into that, I think, a bit later, but I think we were missing even more than that, you know, because we were trying to sell things on a 6 to 8 week lead time. We were spending the money on ads. We had the team, and they were just trying to sell something that was like, people weren't willing to purchase. They weren't willing to wait.
Yeah.
And so we were so inefficient because of that. And ultimately, because I got into a moment where I was like, panic, abort mission.
Yeah.
Things are going to get hard again. That really popped back up. But what was cool about that was like walking alongside of that with you and without judgment, you know, because I actually still think I mean, I don't know what decision I'd make with hindsight, you know, but I don't think that it was necessarily the wrong decision. But it was fun to just observe it, like consciously, and not from the pit, but just kind of from right here, from mid-level. I'm like, oh, if I had furniture, I'd be selling more, you know? I need to figure out a way to have more furniture, you know? And maybe I need to figure out a way where I can have this furniture and it doesn't mean that I'm out of warehouse space or that I'm out of cash. And so we just started playing with that problem in a playful space rather than one of panic. And through 2024, we were playing with these ideas, ultimately resulting in goals for us in 2025. That was support yourself in ways so that you can take that risk, so you can have furniture. And so, yeah, that was a big blip, but we've learned so much this year as a result of it. You know, we ended up surrounding ourselves with a little bit of debt, with extra warehouse space. And that allowed us just to say, okay, buy as much furniture as we can. Let's see where the top of our potential is. And we haven't even found it. You know, we're still out of stock in certain products because we've just been growing so much. We're at like 60% growth this year.
Wow.
As a result of just saying like, how could we solve for that problem? You know?
Well, and I think the genesis of that was you actually had to do some hard work around, or I guess we did that in the coaching space together, around your relationship to inventory and your relationship to buying. Because these are like 6 to 8 month plays that you're trying to make. Like you're trying to look into your crystal ball like 6 to 8 months from now. And it's quite challenging to know what to invest in and what to make money in. And so, and you're always thinking about cash flow and all the things, but it's all crystal balling way out there in the future. And I think one of the ways, I remember you, when you were about to go place the order, I think you said something like this is the best $500,000 investment I've ever made. And it was like, basically, instead of putting this in a stock market at 8%, or instead of like, I'm taking this $500,000 and I'm placing a bet and I'm betting on ourselves and I'm choosing to tie this money up appropriately in inventory so I can sell it.
And it didn't happen overnight. Like it wasn't like, it still took me a while to like want to make that commitment and to bring that into my like goals for the year. And there was some reluctance along the way, but that's eventually where we got. I love furniture, you know, I love having it in stock because it's way easier to sell it when we have it in stock. And I was always so concerned about the inventory cost and the warehouse space cost. Those are two limiting factors that I was just like, I can't. These are big problems, you know. And then I remember you being like, well, what's the cost of extra inventory? And what is the cost of having, 4,000 or 3,000 units in stock? And then we actually did the exercise and it was like, oh, it's under $100,000. Like I spend $100,000 on a lot of stuff right now, you know? Like we spend $100,000 in a month in advertising, you know? And so it was like, if we look at the cost of the debt, if we looked at the cost of this extra warehouse space, it's only $100,000. Like, let's do it. And that's where the transition shifted from like, this is such a big thing to take on to like, well, it's only $100,000 and like, this is the best $100,000 I can spend, or this is the best $500,000 I can spend. And so, because we built support structures around me. That was the debt. That was the extra space. It allowed me to play in this space of risk where I didn't feel like if it didn't work out, I was going to die, you know, because furniture is not that, you know, like if you're in a fashion brand trying to sell things on trend, that's tough. Like you do have to be more careful with your inventory risk, but I've never been concerned about selling a piece of furniture for what I paid for it. Like that, it's just the margins are good in this business and furniture just moves a lot slower. You know, it's just like trend
doesn't turn over.
But no, it doesn't, you know? And so if that's true, then I may have to hold this extra inventory a little bit longer, but that cost isn't death, or that cost isn't like crisis. That cost is a number. And it came to find out that number is not that significant in our overall budgets. So like, wow, that was a major moment for me, just to be like, wow, this isn't like crisis. This is an opportunity, you know? And so we started viewing some of those limiting factors, in fact, as like, gifts. It's totally changed our year for sure. This year, we noticed it at the end of last year. It started to have an impact. And then this year has just been, you know, like we maybe 60-70% growth this year as a result of a lot of things, but the catalyst in there, or the fuel, is just having that inventory. So,
gosh, that's a huge move. And I think there's something helpful to highlight. We just went in describing the strategy of how that actually got birthed, but I think it probably started out of the complaint, you know, like way back, like in that early Q1 era, when things started getting better and we're you know, demand is outpacing, and, you know, you're coming back to the sessions, like complaining like, hey, we don't have enough inventory. Like, and it's like, talk for a second about how, I mean, I could talk about it, but this idea that so much of vision and what we want to create like comes out of complaints.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're staring at something and you're just beating your head over it and complaining about it. We're coming back into the session. You're being authentic, like you said, and honest. And I love complaints. So anytime anybody comes in and they're just like, blah, 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 I'm complaining, I'm just writing it all down, because each one of those complaints is a baby vision just waiting to be born. Right. And I don't know that I have the words perfect, but I would imagine there was some sort of vision of like, what if we never had to be out of inventory again?
Yeah.
Or what if we never had to say no to a customer who made an order and they had to wait more than they needed to, right? Like, and it's like, out of that vision, what if that reality could happen? All of a sudden you give your brain like a new project, a new thing to go solve for. And then the whole strategy that you just mentioned just comes out of that because your brain figured it out. And so I think that's a really like important thing to notice, is the coaching space is very much a space where we come up with new projects for your brain to go be right about, or your brain to go solve for. And it's usually projects that we've either never considered, or we've just dismissed them as fantasy, and that could never happen, or that's impossible.
Yeah.
Right. And our brains can get stuck into that sort of comfortable space of, that's impossible. Well, we've never done that before.
Yeah.
You know,
That's not me.
That's not me.
That's not who I want to be.
Yeah.
You know? Well, I think that complaint to curiosity journey is like the daily thing we do. You know, it's always like, that's one of the questions I fill out before every session. Like, what are we complaining about? What are we tolerating?
Yeah.
And I think that's the sweet sauce. It's just being able to turn, like, complaints are good because if we put them into like a curious space, well, like what those are the things we need to solve for. Like, we're complaining about problems in our business and our life. There are solutions to them if we're willing to go into them in a curious way. You know? And that's for me, the gold in coaching is just like having somebody pulling you. Like, you have a crappy week, cash flows this order falls through, you have a problem with this, and you just can kind of come in here to like old beliefs or complaints. And then that coaching space is just like, pull it back up to this curious space, this beautiful space.
Yeah. So you can come in with the realities and the complaints and all the things and all the belief systems that then are scaffolding and supporting all of this reality that you're experiencing. And then, we get to pull back and go, hey, what is it that we long for here? What beliefs might serve that?
Yeah.
What action might serve that, now that we know who? Well, another thing too is also, like, whenever you cook up a new vision, it's usually not, you're not that leader yet. So whatever that vision is that you've cooked up, the reason it's all out there and it feels scary and big and out there is because you're not that leader yet. And so there's a huge conversation just around your way of being and who would you need to be in order to go solve for something like that. So there's not only a cooking up a vision and what could be, but there's also a reimagining of who this person could be in order to go solve for that. And so I'd be curious to hear, there's an archetype that we developed for you that really helped shape and codify a way of being. And we were able to put like a name on it. And not every client does this, where they actually come up with an archetype or a name that really like serves them. But it's usually like, I am statements like, I am courageous, or I am resilient, or I am strong. And these end up becoming the pieces that help support that new vision. But for you took it to the next level. Talk about that for a second.
So there's this gap between where we're at and where we long to be. You know, and sometimes, especially for me, wanting, like, really valuing authenticity and honesty, it's hard for me to be like, I'm okay with that vision, because it's like there's a gap between, and I don't know how to get there. And so I can't commit to that. I can't, like, if I'm going to say I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there. Or I'm going to force myself to get there. And sometimes I don't know that I can actually do that. And so the journey from...
Wait, to pause for a second, because you kept using the word authenticity before. I want to be authentic. I want to be authentic in the space. And I think it served you to be very honest in the space around what was coming up for you and all the things. But sometimes that definition of authenticity holds you back, right? Because your vision's inviting you into something that is not you. It's not authentic. Like, you've never done it before, right?
There's potential for me not to succeed at this, you know, like that's the reality with vision too. And that's probably the hardest part for me. But like, to go from here to there, sometimes that was hard for me to say, like, I'm willing to let myself go and play in this vision space, because it almost felt like I had to draw myself into that. Like, so there's this element of playfulness, you know, we worked a lot on, was like, just be playful in that process. But the archetype figure was a kind of a costume I could put on and play in that vision space. And that was super helpful for me because I was like, well, I can be that person and I don't have to be me yet. Like, what? So we ended up like, I'm just a big soccer buff, like I love English football, I'm a big fan of Liverpool. And there was this iconic coach at the time named Jurgen Klopp. And he's just a legend, he's like a normal dude, but like living in this just top, I don't know what percentile of soccer, like it's not even 1%. It's like, it's just the most elite level sport, as this normal sounding guy. And he was just somebody I was just fascinated with. And so I'd listen to his podcasts, I'd read books. I'd always listen to his like pre-match and post-match. And I was just like, he was like my guru in a way, it's like, I just wanted to, he was somebody that I wanted to act like in my life, who was grounded, centered, had great perspective, like I didn't want to read the books by the tech bros, because I was like, those guys are douchebags. I don't want to be that. Jurgen's not that way, so I was like, oh, this is a guy that I can kind of latch onto. And then we started playing with this idea of like, well, what would Jurgen do in this situation? And so like, we had this complaint and we didn't know what the vision was yet because I just couldn't get myself there. So I was able to put on this costume of Jurgen and be like super playful and then end up with vision that I was like, oh, I want that actually, and I can see how he would go there. And so that was just a cool, I think, breakthrough for us, was to look at these metaphors, these archetypes,
ways of being. Yeah.
And I think my challenge is or has been traditionally just to be playful with business, and be playful with risk, and to if I can move my life, if I can change work into this like journey, exciting experiment that's super playful, it's totally that's the different relationship to work. That's what I'm after. And so stepping into this character mode was super helpful. And even looking at business as the Premier League or these soccer tournaments, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what are we after? Like I was after something that I didn't know how to define what I was after, but like breaking it into like, well, we're trying to win a Champions League, or we're trying to win a Premier League, or we're trying to just qualify, or what, like, it just gave this like language and this experience and this knowledge base that I have about soccer. It just kind of brought it turned work into play a little bit more. So that was a fun little breakthrough for us because I think it really opened up conversations around like, I think it broke down barriers, I think, that I wasn't able to get past in our day-to-day work.
Yeah, totally. Because we dream up these visions and it would be like, whoa, that's awesome. What if that could happen? And then fear was like right there, like can't do it, risky, hard, like all these things that wanted to just squash and push you back down. When in reality, your heart was like really drawn to that. And so it was so fun to like, to just, okay, cool. Like, what's the voice of fear saying? Right. And then start teasing those beliefs out and then putting them down on paper and being like, okay, wow. So this is a belief that's keeping me from, and then inviting new belief systems that might actually serve the vision and seeing how that even ties into this archetype of Jurgen. And like, it was just, it was a very fun process of like working out of the voice of fear and back into, and I would say the voice of love in a lot of ways, because you love Jurgen, you love the games he plays, you love watching him lead. And it's like, well, what if you could love what you're leading and what you're building? And I think even watching that move into like your team, like you're like, I want to build a team like Jurgen builds teams. And you started like really rethinking like the type of team players you want their character, how they approach problems. Do they have vision of their own? Yeah. And then the team starts growing, and then it goes into, what do I want Hati to be about? And it just started moving back out in these larger, beautiful visions, So.
There was so much play in that. And I remember that season distinctively in our coaching. I think it was before I took off for Bali this summer, it was just like, whoa, like totally reorienting my relationship to how business could be, and it was sport, it was play, and there's so much money wrapped in it at the end of the day in football now, or in soccer now, but ultimately it's just a game. And I think some of the characteristics too that I had maybe I felt in my leadership role that I had to have answers. And like what Jurgen would say, let's say a player is struggling, or let's say a team's struggling, and it's like, we're just going to go work. We're just going to go train the same way every single day. And we're going to show up and we're going to work hard. And I think that's a gift to me this year, that reality. Because maybe that's something I can do every day. I can show up and I can work hard and I can be that person. Like always having the answer is a hard thing to beat, like you can't, he wasn't this genius necessarily. Like there was genius in the way he approached his work, but he's the normal one. He's not this like genius. He's just someone who showed up and was like, I'm going to do my best work every single day. And I think that was super impactful for me, and where I feel like I get drawn into my leadership role of like, I need a better vision. I need a bigger thing. Sometimes it's just about like showing up and training and like approaching every day the same way, whether you have like a success. Like, I think that was a big learning from that period was like, yeah, sometimes Liverpool would lose and that would be a bummer for everybody. And the media was in crisis and, oh my gosh, like they're falling apart and all these things. And like, he just would be like, this is crazy. We're just going to show up and we're going to do the same exact thing. And we're going to try to marginally be more and more elite. And if I can get enough of the guys on my team thinking that way, we're going to start winning again. And so it just, I don't know why it just made things so much more simple for me of like, how do I want to approach work? How do I want to approach leadership? Who's on our team, and like, what are some of the like ways we talk about our team? So something I tried to emphasize was like I'd look at his teams and he'd pull in 23, 24-year-olds. So like people coming into the prime of their career, he would buy up and coming talent, not like the finished article. And he would work with them and give them a platform to become the best. And yeah. So that's when I started looking at my team like, whoa, like that could be us, and I started to try that language on it at the office. And even we just hired somebody new. And I told her, I was like, yeah, we have a team full of like people entering the prime of their career with a platform, with Hati Home being the platform to do incredible work. And and they're doing the things of their dreams, maybe not yet, but like, I think in the next couple of years, we're going to be doing the things of our dreams with this platform. And like, what a cool thing to be a part of. I think that's ultimately when he was recruiting talent for players to come in, I think that's ultimately what all he was saying was like, I'm going to make sure that environment exists so that you can be at the top level of your game.
Yeah. And what a refreshing place to come to work where you're like, hey man, you're stepping into the prime of your career.
Yeah.
What do you want to create?
Yeah. Yep.
And having just a curious conversation about what's actually in this person and what they want to create. I mean, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's a fun way to lead.
It's been so much more fun. It's given me like I still think I'm on my journey of like, what kind of leader is Adam? Like I want to be Jurgen. I'm not quite there, in some ways. But yeah, I'm definitely experimenting with that archetype and playing more of that role, which is just, it's not acting per se, but it is just saying like, it is taking a leap of faith and saying something and not knowing how it's going to land, like we're going to do this dream session tomorrow and got some great questions. And I'm like, and they're very aspirational, imaginative. And I'm like, man, I hope this goes well. They're not, we'll see where they go. We'll see where the team goes with it. But there's like a playfulness and like adopting some of this way of being as a leader right now.
Well, I think it'd be fun to kind of wrap there on that moment of like, cause you just described this little micro moment of risk where you're like, I'm going to go put Jurgen on and I'm going to go play with all these ways of being that I know serve me as a leader, that I'm starting to get comfortable with. I'm starting to put out into the world. Yeah. And I'm going to go drop some new questions like into the ecosystem tomorrow. Yeah. And guess what? I have no idea how it's going to go. They may flop. They may be silent crickets, when I throw them down. Then what? Right. Like, and so that old Adam maybe wants to sneak back in for a second and be like, hey, whatever the limiting beliefs are, that might be, I mean, are you even present to any of that, or is it?
I mean, that pops up every once in a while. I'm like, how's this going to go? But I think I think the main difference for me, like the thing that's really resonating with me and discussions I'm having with my peers and close friends is like, in my previous relationship to work, I was the risk. I was the challenge. I was the one that made mistakes. I was the one that I was part of the reason why we didn't succeed, which is not true, but that was the belief I had of Crochet Kids. To like, I'm the risk. That's transitioned to like, risk is this externality, and it's this thing that we bring in at certain times in our life, but it has nothing to do necessarily with me. I have to make the decision on whether to like take a risk or not. Like that is on me, but like risk is this externality. So like there is a risk in a loose meeting, a meeting with loose like question structure.
Yeah.
Especially one where I'm really trying to get people that have our team to have a conversation on what could this look like, in a couple of years. So there's a risk there, but if it doesn't go well, I don't suck. Like I'm not a formal leader. I'm not a think like, oh, I need to get another CEO because this guy's blowing it. Like that's not.
Which I remember early on, that was one of the things that was circling. It was like, maybe I need somebody else to run this thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's still there in the next, like, there's still that limiting belief that's like, okay, we got to the level that I thought I couldn't go past, and we would need to get somebody, and now I'm there and I'm like, oh, I think I can get double this, and so I don't know what's around the corner there, but
talk about your relationship to risk now.
Yeah. Well, it's just that it is an externality. It's not, I am not the risk in the business. Like I'm on a journey with it, and I'll make risky decisions that will not work out, and I'll make risky decisions that will work out. But, our work was, to bring it full circle, our work was all about like stepping into action to prove that like, that's what I yearned for initially. It was like, I wanted to come in and like prove to myself that I was capable, and therefore that would give me confidence. And I don't know that it's so much about that. I think what's happened is like I've just reoriented and built a different scaffolding structure and a different belief structure to where that risk is externalized, and then I just get to play and be in this space. It doesn't come back to like my inherent value or worth. It's I'm just playing a role, I'm just in this role for this period of time. And it's a fun, curious, playful journey to be on.
Damn. So risk is no longer fear-based. There's a sense of joy, a sense of love for the game, like you're saying.
Yeah. And sometimes it's scary. Yeah. It's not to say risk there is, as like we're hitting some home runs right now. And so there are some major wins right now. There'll be some things in the future where the risk hurts, and we are losing potential revenues, or we're losing cash flow position as a result. But it's not going to come back to me. It's not going to come back to like, what a dummy. It's going to come back to like, well, that was a decision that didn't pan out. You know, which is like, it sounds so simple, but that relationship is like critical. Like that change in that relationship is like earth shattering for me. It totally broke this fear-based, scared of work kind of mentality.
Even the terminology of like, we're going to go run this play, like almost like Jurgen would go like dream up this play in the last 1 minute of the game that is tied or whatever it is, and it's like, we're going to go run it. There's a huge set of variables out on that field that I can't even control. Yeah. And we're going to go see what happens, and like it'll work or it won't. Right. And even just having that groundedness of just like, well, this is play. And so that's so cool to see how that relationship shifted. Your relationship to risk has shifted. I've seen it so much. You're taking so much more appropriate risk and having fun doing it. And then the crazy thing is when you actually see the things click off and you're like, dude, it worked. Yeah. Like how much confidence that throws back into the system of you as a leader and your team. And I mean, and then when you start just looking at bare results, end of 2024, you were just hoping to break even off of that hard start. And you end up, you said, growing 20% that year.
20% last year.
And then we started talking about what could be for this year. And we threw a number on the board and we were like, oh, that'd be awesome if you could hit that. And then now you're ending the year, like you said, 60 or 70% more than what you thought.
We're beyond the stretch goal, which is so cool.
Yeah.
It's like, it's been so fun too, that journey could have been challenging in other ways, like there was things along the way that might've been challenging in previous years, but, because growing is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world either.
Sure. What do I do with this?
Yeah. There's challenges that come with that, but gosh, it's just been so much more fun. And I just don't want to go through my life with work being hard and work being like robbing me of energy and taking away from my family. You know, like I just want it to be something different. And I think that we're like on that journey of like creating that right now, which is cool.
Yeah. So good, man. I love that. And it sounds like, hey, tomorrow I get to go invite my team into that same vision to go say, what does growth look like again? Yeah.
Well, I think they've seen some of that in me, and then the little taste they had of it. Maybe if I do in the office a couple times to do sessions, a lot of the language, the way I talk about our work is just really interested, you know? Like I just got a text message. I didn't tell you this, but we did a big party in LA, a text message the day after, because there were some misses by the PR agency. And it was one of the staff being like, Adam, you and Seth would have been so proud of me. I just like was super honest and forthcoming, and I like advocated for Hati in its fullest. And she was like, I kind of laid into these people, and I was like, that's so cool, you know? And so they're like adopting it, and we're seeing that change kind of trickle down a little. Super fun, you know? And so that's the next season for us, is to look at all these employees as like such great opportunities, and how do we, or not even employees, all our partners across the whole business is like, we work with some of the best. So like, let's just make Hati a platform where we can all, it's the part of our career, or it's where the client, where everybody looks back on. It's just like, dang, that was the unicorn, or that was a beautiful gift to be part of that.
Yeah. So rewarding as a leader. Like, and I want to just affirm you. And like, it's been so fun just the last couple of years together, 2.5 years. And then to see you just shift so much. And then now just to see it overflowing like into your team, into your family, like it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Well,
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's the sweet sauce, is finding somebody who can walk with you through it. You know, like I know you, Hermas, my wife, Callie, you guys have all just been coaches and walking with me on that journey. And it's like, I just love it way more than I did a couple of years ago. So
love it. Awesome. Cool, man. Well, thanks for chatting. Of course. Awesome, brother. Good to be with you.